selective about
Good morning, and please have a seat. So we promised better visuals later. I had to interrupt the photos, but I just wanted to say my brother Greg and I, who talk about the loss of parents and family, remind each other that this day is for the living, the rest of us. And as we said goodbye to our dad and mom and now our brother, those words really ring true. And we had 5 players on the bench, now we're down to 2. And that is kind of a real life recognition of what's going on. We thank you for joining us. We appreciate your presence as we reflect on the life of our brother Rock. Collectively, we hope the words and sounds and images and heartfelt feelings of the day resonate and uplift each of us as we reflect on Rock's life. As we continue moving forward with some empty spaces in our hearts and minds without Rock, the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer provide some valuable context. There is nothing that can replace the absence of someone dear to us, and one should not even try to do so. One must simply hold out and endure it. At first, that sounds very hard, but at the same time, it is also a great comfort. For to the extent emptiness truly remains unfilled, one remains connected to the other person through it. It's wrong to say God fills the emptiness. God in no way fills it, but much more, he leaves it precisely unfilled, and thus helps us preserve, even sometimes in pain, the authentic relationship and our full remembrances. It's better to hold it.
Okay. Hello. Is that good? I'm Jennifer Klein. I'm Mark's wife and Rock's sister-in-law. And I wanted to start us off by talking a little bit about Rock's spiritual side. So a lot of y'all are very familiar with that, with his writings. I know we have a lot of you have gotten birthday cards with some very heartfelt, earnest messages that we didn't quite understand. And then there were the cheery phone calls just out of the blue, so that we knew that. So then having him in Atlanta the last few years, we really connected. And sometimes it was hanging out with him after he'd had lunch with his buddies at assisted living, and we just kind of hang out. And then sometimes it would be a project, like we figured out how to watch the eclipse with a little box, and I had him outside with some other people. But what he mostly liked to do is I would push his wheelchair outside. He'd take his shirt off in the Georgia sunshine. And then he'd like to look on his phone to see how cold it was in Bend. So this time of year. But how we really connected was in praying together. And Rock was a really spiritual guy, and a lot of times it would be in thankfulness that he was doing better. That when he'd come, he was just he could hardly move, and then he got into his wheelchair and then his walker. But and after we prayed, he would look at me and he would grab my hand and he would say, "Thanks, Jim." But I really think that a lot of his relationships with friends had to do with sharing his faith or just being open about it. Some of you might have seen what his friend Paul wrote in tribute line. It really meant a lot to me. I'm going to read it to you. He said, "I've never had a friend like Rock. When having our weekly coffee together nearly every Thursday morning, We shared our love for Jesus, the Cubs, football, baseball players, from past to present. And it's hard for me to clearly explain, but we went from praying each other to just talking about sports or news and music, and so often we felt that Jesus was sitting right there with us. And I miss the big guy very much, but glad he was free from his physical struggles and able to fully live now and enjoy all the wonder heaven has to offer. Peace, my brother in Christ. So as Mark said, this is a celebration of Rock's life on earth, to where we can celebrate him. But I don't want us to overlook that Rock has gone to a place that he knew about and he talked about and he was looking forward to. And that was his heavenly home, where he would be free from the limitations in his life, free from his pain. And we're promised in Revelation 21:3 that he will wash every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more mourning, no more crying, no more pain, for the old order of things has passed away. When Rock arrived in Atlanta, as we were referring to, he could hardly swing his legs out of the bed. He was in a bad situation. But he talked a lot about what he missed in Oregon. One of the things was being on his kayak. And he just wanted to order a new kayak. He just said, I'm going to get back on the river. And it was quite improbable. Because, first of all, he couldn't get out of bed. And then there was certainly no place to store a kayak in his little room. But I really believe that Rock got his wish. Because we are learned also in Revelation, we're told of the crystal clear river of life that flows from the throne of God in heaven. And I can just imagine Rock finally out in his kayak, free from pain, and he is paddling the crystal waters that he loves so much. So Christ offers all of us, as he did Rock, life and forgiveness and eternal rest, and says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So now I just want to read a little prayer. May there come over the earth a great and glorious light. May we remember heaven. May all who suffer feel pain no more. May sorrow depart. May disease end. May war stop. May doubts ease. May hearts gladden. May we remember heaven. May every child and every woman and every man now, this instant, feel sure release from the burdens of their life. Amen.
Please welcome the man who wrote and recorded Oh Happy Day, Mr. Edwin Hawkins and Lynette Hawkins Stevens. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus was. Oh, when he was. When Jesus was. Oh, yeah. Jesus wants every one of us sin away. He can do the same way.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm Barbara. I am Rock's sister-in-law and married to his brother, Greg. I have just a couple short things to read to you. One is a message from my sister, and this is what she wrote. Sending hugs to all the Kleins and wishing I could be there to raise a glass to Rock. I've known Rock, Greg, and Mark since I was in 8th grade. Possibly too young to hear those Klein boys' stories, central character, Rock, and they still have me laughing. My favorites. I don't know, the donuts one, the room service, and a couple I can't put into words, but involved a convertible, running through the backyards, and I think I'll stop there. We shared time with the Kenilworth Kleins, wedding prep holidays, and just family get-togethers. I think back fondly on Peg and Dick and Grandma Klein. I believe Mark and I had a few years of being the mildly annoying but thinking we were oh so funny younger siblings. That house buzzed with boy energy, and we loved having more family nearby. Greg still calls me sis. I'm thankful to have spent time with Rock at excuse me, Diana and Amir's wedding. It all kind of fit right back into place. So here's to Rock, celebrating his warmth and humor with all of you today. Hug tight to those you love. When I think of Rock, and I guess I was 17 when I first met him, I think of all the different ages and stages he's gone through. And the poem that comes to mind is Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wares. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in the leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how the way leads on to way, I I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. This last poem, I hadn't planned on reading till I was taking apart the picture that Rock sent us one Christmas. He was 65, and he sent us all a big 8x10 picture of himself, which you can see on the table. And as I was cleaning the glass and flipped the picture over, which I'd never done before, he has the date and then he's 65, and then he has "if" in quotes and Rudyard Kipling's poem. So I thought, okay, this meant something to Rock. He was sending a message. We just didn't know that Christmas we got it. So here is the poem that was so special to Rock. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, then make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make all your winning and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your long term after they are gone, and hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
First of all, this is a happy day, and I'm so happy to see everybody here. And also, I want to embarrass some people. Carol Grable, who is a lifelong friend after he met her at SMU, came in from Pennsylvania. Would you please stand up and just kind of do a little Carol?
There you go.
We have 2 of Rock's grade school, junior high school classmates, class of 1960 at Joseph Seward School. Would you please stand up? And last but not least, I'm going to count 6, but members of Rock's football team of DePauw came in for this event. Would you please stand up? Okay. Thank you for indulging me, but these people just have to be recognized. Well, it's Saturday morning, 10 o'clock hour, and it's my normal time for my catch-up call with Rob, but he's gone. And I miss him. But instead of talking to Rob, I want to talk about and maybe focus on some major me any slack, but that helped me because I gained toughness and developed a competitive spirit. Outside the family, he was a protector. Nobody messed with his brother. He showed kindness, patience, and support. He let me tag along and included me in games with his friends, and I got to play against older kids, 4 years old. And that boosted my self-confidence and helped me in sports. He taught me many things, practical things like how to ride a bike, how to shave, of course, the facts of life. But also some life lessons way too many to mention here. The Rock was our trailblazer. We watched and learned from his mistakes. He simplified our life. We learned what to do and what not to do. One important early lesson: making Rock mad is a bad idea. 2, the name Klein. The name was important to him. He loved all the Klein folklore, feats of strength and athletic prowess. There was great-grandpa Klein, German immigrant farmer known for his raw power. There was Grandpa Klein, blue-collar Santa Fe Railroad employee for life, a model of strength and durability. Our dad, a rags to riches story, from Fort Madison, Iowa, to Western to the Chicago Bulls. He was strong, a star athlete, a good businessman. These were Rock's heroes. So that folklore and legacy, Rock wanted to be part of it and keep it alive. And he tried to exhibit those traits. He even adopted memorable expressions from each of them. For example, if I was devilish, he would tap great-grandpa Klein and say, "You are a bad boy." Or, "Rock, how's it going?" He would echo Grandpa Klein. He said, "Just like a running horse." And then he even slips some Fort Madison, Iowa jargon in every now and then. And particularly was, there you go, there you go. So for Rock, Klein would be on the front of the jersey, not on the back. It was a team name. For him, the Klein boys were unbeatable. His ultimate pleasure in pickup games, Klein boys win. He had a bring-it-on attitude, and with a New York accent, would say, "Beat us, forget about it." 3, sports and competition. No surprise here, big part of his life. He loved to play and compete. He was a fierce competitor. All business between the lines. It was a long day for any opponent. It was a mistake to underestimate. You better come and play. 4, the underdog. He instinctively rooted for the underdog. He saw himself that way. Growing up, he was chubby, a late bloomer, overlooked in high school. It was part of the romance of beating the odds. He relished being underestimated and then prevailing. He had no varsity football experience in high school, but became a college football star as an undersized defensive lineman. He proudly wore number 79 at DePauw and wanted to be remembered. Well, he was. Revered by his teammates, feared by his opponents. Loyalty is all about the team. Thanks, guys. He loved pickup basketball because it had the element of surprise. He was not the physical prototype, but highly effective and a real handful. He liked discovering underrated and/or overlooked players and praising them. 5, physical challenges. He's highly motivated. He liked to exhibit physical prowess. He was proud of his power, fast hands, and strong legs. He liked playing hand-speed games. He even tried to catch flies with his bare hands to stay sharp. Dad told him, "Son, you got fine legs." He called them the trees. Once again, back to his roots, beating the odds. The best motivator for Rock is to say, no, Rock, no, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. Rock would say, oh yeah, just watch. Or you just do it quickly and say, what'd you say? What? Then came that slow knowing breath. Like the song High Hopes. Oops, there goes another runner. 6, self-determination and strong will. Did I mention stubborn? For Rob, Edwin was permanent. He preferred his way. He liked the challenge with conventional wisdom. That path felt like a default for him. He enjoyed problem solving, often took a unique approach. Some would call it out-of-the-box thinking. Sometimes his decisions could be puzzling or frustrating. Puzzling? Well, he and I used to have this endless conversation. Rock, if I follow your locker trail, I get lost. To which he would say, that's because you're not as smart as me. I asked, what's a brother to do? Frustrating? At times he ignored sound advice. Best example, years of self-doubt. The Robert Frost poem, The Barb it's a metaphor for life's journey. That difficult decision shaping, that fork in the road symbolizes the different paths a life can take, and that life's choices have an impact on the future. But the last line is spot on, because Rock often took the road less traveled, and that made all the difference. 7, music. For Rock, it was visceral, body and soul. It energized and soothed him. It was his happy place. He loved the oldies, collected records, tapes, and played them all. Favorite songs prompted a spontaneous singing or a physical reaction. He knew the songs, the lyrics, the artists, the top 10. He watched American Bandstand. He learned the dances. He taught me too. Moving from Bend, Oregon to Atlanta, what was at the top of his list? I want my records and tapes. 8, Chicago and the Midwest. He was proud of Chicago and its Midwestern values. Sweet home in Chicago. He bled Chicago Cubs blue. He worked for the city one summer and liked to mimic the Chicago accent from working class neighborhoods. He created the phrase city ball as a substitute for a good move or a savoir faire. 9, his soft side. He was a spiritual person. He saw God as the creator, and he trusted God and Mother Nature. As a child, he loved being tucked in bed and saying prayers to Mom. His happiest moment, the birth of his daughter, Casey. Casey, nobody ever touched his heart like he did. He loved the great outdoors and enrolled in the National Outdoor Leadership School, and it had a big impact on him. He cared about the environment, a major factor in his move to Bend, Oregon. He enjoyed watching sunsets and gazing at mountains. He was openly kind to downtrodden people. He had $1 million smile and an infectious giggle. He was highly nostalgic, reminisced often, always willing to share his memories. He was young at heart, exhibited childlike qualities, loved little kids, even developed a small voice and a unique language to imitate. Along with music, he enjoyed movies and cartoons. He would imitate his favorite singers and characters and incorporate his favorite lyrics and/or lines into conversations. He savored his morning coffee and enjoyed visiting with mug in hand. Some final thoughts. 10. Final thoughts. In our family life, Rock had things interesting. He was often the lead actor in the notorious Klein stories. Best described as a collection of coming-of-age anecdotes. He remained a family favorite, and now they're multi-generational. He certainly left his mark on all of us. Indeed, he will be remembered and loved. Well, God, good old number 79's on your team now. Give him a hug for all of us.
up too.
I'm loud. Can you guys hear me?
Go for it.
Okay, all right. I'm Casey, I'm Rock's daughter.
Your choice.
So I'm going to share some memories from Rick Rogers, who was a lifelong friend of my dad's, and had just some thoughts and wrote a nice letter, but wasn't able to make it today. I think it must have been difficult to be the son of Dick Klein. Greg and Mark might disagree, but I think it must have been particularly difficult to be the first son. There were expectations of performance to match with the illustrious farm kid from Iowa who went to Northwestern, where he played basketball and baseball, then played both sports professionally and went on to put together and be the first general manager of the Chicago Bulls. Truth be told, I always loved hanging out at the Klein's house. Peg, with whom I shared a July 16th birthday, and Dick were somewhat younger than my folks, and always a lot more with it. Our family never bought a comedy record, but I first heard Bill Cosby's Noah routine at the Klein's. I was never intimidated by Dick Klein with his larger-than-life smile. He certainly knew stuff about sports, but he kind of spoke in a jargon that I can only call jock speech. In many respects, Richard Fred Klein was a lot like Dick. He was a fierce competitor, he was smart, but unlike Dick, he was underestimated for his innate intelligence. Rock was at times larger than life, but he was always Rocky. He fit the name. Ted Catula, the 40-year athletic director and longtime football coach at DePauw University, once told me in Lake Tahoe that when he first met Rock, he said that Rock was a pretty demanding name for a football player, and was he really up to his name? Rocky told him in no uncertain terms, "You'll just have to decide for yourself." The answer to that question is the following. Catula also said that Rocky Klein was the finest lineman he coached in his 4 years of football. But Rocky was someone who didn't suffer fools very well, and I think it cost him at times, when he might have been too insistent that this was the right view. He just wasn't very politic. When he worked in pro baseball, he probably shouldn't have told the owner that the owner just didn't know what he was doing. Or when he was teaching college at Oregon State or Western Washington, that the admissions director at the Harvard University of Washington PhD programs were just wrong in not admitting him. I became friends with Rocky in first or second grade, or more than 70 years ago. We did overnights, which was always more stressful for me when I stayed at Rocky's house than when he stayed at mine. He was head over heels in love at the age of 9 with Harriet Porter, and couldn't understand why his mom told him Harriet couldn't have an overnight. Sophisticated me, of course, knew the reason, but frankly, Rocky was right. It would have been perfectly okay. We competed on the football and baseball fields. I never had Dick as a coach, but had the equally knowledgeable Milt Kolar, Rick's dad. Rocky was the archetypal Chicago Cubs fan. The Rogers were followers of Nellie Fox, Chico Carswell, and Luis Aparicio, Minnie Minoso, and Jungle Jim Rivera, and of course, the Chicago White Sox. I loved to tear down Ernie Banks and Gene Baker and Dee Fondy as second rate compared to Aparicio, and compared Aparicio to Fox to Kuzlewski. I did it just to piss him off. In football, beginning in second grade, Rocky was the formidable fullback for the Blues. I was the quarterback for the Whites. The teams had an even one-loss record by the time I finished 6th grade. I moved to Florida for 7th and 8th grade, but moved back to the Midwest to begin my freshman year at New Trier. We had different high school sports experiences, but Rocky didn't have his growth spurt until late in high school, and I still remember he suffered from bilateral Auschwitz-Schlatter, a word I haven't heard or said in almost 70 years. I owe a lot to Rocky, not the least of which is he provided my opening line to a hot Sally Field lookalike with a better body on a bar on Rush Street with a month after I got out of the Air Force and was going to Northwestern Business School. It was October 1971 and my first time on Rush Street. From a first glance, I thought she must have been a 19-year-old secretary with a fake ID when I asked her to dance. Turns out she was from Bloomington, Indiana, had graduated from DePauw the previous June and was working in Chicago. That provided me with the easiest opening pickup line ever on Rush Street. "Do you know my friend Rocky Klein?" Well, everybody at DePauw knew Rocky, and she replied, not surprisingly, "Yes, he was a Sigma Chi." Susie and I are still together together more than 54 years later. Rocky was simply stated my best friend. We talked at least once or twice a week the last 18 months of his life. I was trying to get him back on his feet, and we simply rambled on about sports, growing up in Kenilworth, and life. Today I think about Rocky almost every week and miss him. That's me. That's it. I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming. It's really means a lot.
As an impromptu, we're going to invite a member of Rock's team to come up and say a few words.
Make sure it's a few words. This man can talk. If you're brief, this man can talk.
I too have a loud voice. I was a coach for 20 years, and that's what I'm going to just focus on. My comments here are very unscripted, so if they seem disjointed, please stand hanging there with me. I once read something that within 24 hours, you will forget 85% of what is said in verbal conversation. So the comment always is, what's that 15% that you might take away from here? What I wanted to just briefly mention, and I appreciate, was it Greg or Mark who mentioned his DePauw teammates that are here. Rock was something special to us all. And I just want to mention the guys that are here represent 4 different classes. One of Rock's class of 69. Tom Bose over there, put your hand up, Tom. Class of 68. Little All-American football player, first or second team? Second team. Not too shabby. And of course back there, Mo Rosenbaum and Ken Marsh, class of 71. And then over here, Johnny Long, class of 70.
Ken was a fraternity brother.
Right. And what's special about, from a standpoint, like I said, I coached for 20 years. I just did junior high kids. But if any of you have played athletics and you are a member of a team for a number of years, something develops between you and the group you're with, and we call that camaraderie. And I would always emphasize that with the kids. These are just new junior high kids, because I would tell them 15, 20 years from now, you'll run into one of your players, one of your teammates, and you say, you remember this game or this play. And that's what we do at DePauw. I'm very fortunate that I have about 35 to 40 teammates where we can communicate with email and text. We always come back as often as we can. Greg, you mentioned the fact of one of the DePauw football coach. I don't know who you were referring to. We played for a guy by the name of Ted Catula. He was our defensive line coach. Our head coach was Tommy Mott. A classic story from a football standpoint. We played our arch rival school by the name of Wabash College, all men's school, and beating Wabash was the focus. I don't know whether my teammates will admit to this, but they would one of the coaches would say at the beginning of the year, what do you want to be, 8-1 and lose to Wabash, or 1-8 and beat them? And we'd all say 1-8 and beat Wabash. I feel good about the fact that I walked off my last football game up in Crawfordsville, the winner. I apologize to Tom, because his senior year, class of 67, we were the better team in Wabash, but we fumbled the ball, I think, 6 or 7 times and got beat in the mud 7-0. So, but playing for DePauw, we played at a college schedule that was nothing compared to what they do nowadays in Division III, playing Ball State, Indiana State, Valpo, Evansville. It was a whole different ball game. But we developed a camaraderie. We would come on campus in August, in the middle of August, when nobody else was on campus, in those 85, 90 degrees, and get ready for a season. And we played through the season. So it meant a lot for me to be here. I got to know Rock more over the last 10 to 15 years. Every time I would call and talk to him, that infectious laugh that I got over the phone that he would talk, and we would review over and over some of the different games, some of the different things we went, and it was a joy, and I knew that I just had to be here, so I wanted to share that with you, how important it was, and we still connect. And I'm going to leave you, though, with a funny anecdote. You mentioned the fact you liked Aparicio and Fox with the White Sox. this is a classic Yogi Berra story. There was and if you go online, you can find this. Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford the Yankees were in Chicago playing the White Sox, and during the game started, the first guy up, Louis Aparicio, he bunts, he gets on base. Second guy up, Nellie Fox, he gets a hit, he's on base. Third guy up is Minnie Minoso, third pitch, he gets hit by a pitch. 3 pitches, fourth pitch, Ted Kluszewski comes up to bat, hits it off the wall, all 3 guys score. 4 pitches. Casey Stengel walks out onto the field, and he walks up to Whitey Ford, and he looks at Whitey, and then he looks at Yogi, and then he says, Casey says, Yogi, does he have anything? You know, basically said, does he have anything today? And Yogi says, how the hell do I know? I haven't caught a pitch yet. Great story. Go online, go on YouTube, and call it up and love it. But thank you for all being here. I thank for my teammates for being here. And I think Tom wants to say a few words. I don't know if you want to say.
Oh, I will. Real quick. Everyone's talking about what a great football player Rock was, and I could just give a little anecdote. It's my indelible memory of him. Even though Ivan said that Wabash was our big rival, to me it was Ball State University, and I think Rock would say the same thing. State school scholarship program on its way to Division I, and we were the little engine that could. But my senior year, we hosted Ball State at DePauw, and Ball State had a star left offensive tackle. Do you know this? Named Oscar Lubke. Oscar was an All-American. He was ultimately drafted by the New York Jets, and all Rock could do for the week before that game was talk about going up against Oscar Lubke and how excited he was about it. And we lost that game. What did we lose? 7-0 to Wabash. We lose 7-3 to Ball State. We only allowed them 2 first downs in the first half. We fumbled. They punched one in, but late in the second half, Oscar went down injured. And I was the safety, so I'm standing back behind Rock. Oscar is the offensive left tackle. Rock is the right defensive tackle. Battling Oscar, handling him all day. Oscar goes down and get hurt. And I can still remember hearing this. Oscar! Oscar! Are you hurt? Oscar, get up, please! He just couldn't stand the idea that he couldn't keep battling Oscar. Just spoke to me about what a fabulous player he was and what a sweet guy at the same time.
We lost that game 73. We dominated that game, and like Tom said, they scored late in the game. If we would have beaten Ball State and beat Wabash, we were being considered for a Bradley Rice Bowl, a bowl game, but we lost that game. We shouldn't have lost. I mean, and in that same game, in that Ball State game, the Ball State coach, his name was Ray Loudon. I don't recall this, but one of my teammates told us years later. The Ball State coach came into our locker room and he congratulated us. He said the better team didn't win that game today. I don't recall that, but apparently that did happen. So, everything Tom says is right on spot. And Rock, he lived for the day to play against Oscar. He wanted, and he was an All-American too, maybe first team offensive tackle. He had everything.
Go Tigers. And echoing my brother Greg, thank you for being here, for sure. We're all going to miss Rock a lot. We'll miss his happy inner child, laughter, impulsive singing and shimmying to spontaneous songs and beggy talk. And retelling the many entertaining stories of our lives. But during his life, Rock was full of surprises. When I was in grade school, he surprised me as a big brother and defender of house rules. During a summertime card game of hearts at our house, one of Greg's friends was cussing wildly over and over during the game, and Rock said, "We do not cuss in our house." He gave him an ultimatum. He said, "One more cussing outburst, and he's going to be thrown out." The wise guy made a bad decision to mock Rock's threat, and more cuss words came out, and Rock literally picked him up out of his chair and threw him through the front screen door onto the bricks outside. Game over. Repairs needed. As he matured, Rock surprised his college coaches and fellow players by blossoming into a top-notch defender at DePauw, going head-to-head against all-conference and all-American players who learned you don't mess with number 79. During one Dallas visit, I was surprised by a moment of amazing self-restraint. Rock was managing the first TGI Fridays restaurant. It was in Dallas. He was enthusiastically cheering for a team member because they were at this co-ed softball game, and I tagged along. And the woman on the team who was really the hero was the focus of Rock's cheering attention. And her boyfriend came up after the game, and the girlfriend came up and said, "I want you to meet my boyfriend." And the boyfriend was a scrawny, skinny guy with a frown. And I'm standing right next to Rock. And Rock reaches out his hand and says, "Hi, I'm Rock." And the boyfriend hurls a right cross into his chin. And Rock goes, "Wow, let's try that again." "Hi, I'm Rock." And the guy was freaked out and started running, and the girlfriend's running after him and said, "I'm so sorry." And he said, "It's okay." Other surprises from Rock came unexpectedly, like during a Dallas ice storm, Rock's winter driving hubris and his wide body Chevy Impala convertible led to the introduction of his front grille to a very sturdy telephone pole. Oops. The replacement car was a wide-body green Buick, bright green Buick, with a vanity license plate. His Texas license plate was the meditative chant, "Om." Rock also surprised a handful of you here today by assigning you your own nickname without intending to slight others. Casey, of course, was dubbed Sunshine. Mary Ellen was Songbird. Alex was Lax. Diana was Minx. And I was Bruiser, thanks to Greg and Rock's collaboration when I was little, but Rock later expanded it to Bruisey and ultimately the Almighty Bruiser. Rock was also surprising us when he left Dallas to become a professor at Oregon State and then later at Western Washington State, but he loved the Northwest. He was the first Klein to live on the West Coast. In fact, Rock requested his final resting place be near Mount Baker outside Bellingham. Then he came back to DC, where he eventually returned to teaching, but he had some surprising experiences along the way too. He enrolled in the National Outdoor Leadership School, which Greg mentioned, and that really changed his entire view of life. His survival skills and wilderness experience led to a love for canoeing and kayaking and fishing and camping, and it became essential personal equipment. I need a canoe, I need a kayak. Remember that in a minute. Another surprising experience, he went to a weight loss clinic in Minneapolis, just outside in the woods. And they served him birdseed for 3 days. He eventually passed out and hit his head and was admitted to the hospital. And after an overnight, he checked himself out and departed, saying, "I don't need any more diagnostics," and he drove himself back to Oregon. We were surprised by Rock's move from DC back to Bend, Oregon when he retired, but it turned out it was a surprisingly beautiful place, with a view of the majestic Cascades and snow-capped mountains all year round. Many of us have enjoyed little surprises from Rock over the years, like, as I think Greg mentioned, the sometimes quirky homemade birthday cards with somewhat esoteric philosophical messages, or as well-intended gifts like a U.S. Mint collectible astronaut coin, or a framed glossy photo of himself. Always given from the heart. visits just to say hi. Then there was a surprise voice message from Rock in January 2023. He admitted himself to the Bend Hospital with excessive swelling in all lower extremities. But he quickly said in his voicemail, nothing to worry about, I should be out of here in a couple days. He was wrong. After being bedridden for 3 months, he was transported via medical van to Atlanta, leaving Oregon behind forever. But there were several happy surprises here. For the first 5 months, he couldn't stand or walk by himself. Joint pain and lack of muscle use rendered him immobile. Then he got 2 cortisone shots, 1 in each knee, and 2 weeks later, he got himself out of bed, got himself in a wheelchair, started paddling himself around, eventually started working a walker in the fall. He practiced walking and finally got to football field links. With more mobility, more confidence, more independence, he wanted to get a car. Greg and I suggested, let's take baby steps here. Why don't you rent a car for a weekend, kind of get to know the town? But Rock had other ideas and surprised us in June. He had bought a car and it was delivered to him at assisted living. It was a 2005 Honda Element, of course, with a canoe rack. He was eager to buy a canoe too, but we convinced him it's a little premature. His car ownership spawned a few other little surprises too. One night, Rock snuck out of assisted living and brought another resident with him. They got lost, drove around Atlanta all night, and returned home in the pre-dawn hours with a friendly police escort. The car stayed parked for a couple of months after that, thankfully. Clearly, Rock was surprising us with his newfound desire to be independent, and on his own declaration of independence, he announced he was leaving assisted living in August. And he picked an independent living facility about 3 miles away. October 1 was his move date, and we all felt that was a huge breakthrough. After his move, I had a few surprise phone calls when he would get lost running errands, and I'd have to extract clues like, where are you? Near a dry cleaners. What do you see? A Chick-fil-A. So I'm trying to put the pieces together on Google Maps. So do you remember a street name? Peachtree. Well, there's a dozen of those. So we finally helped him navigate home. But he hated his iPhone. The navigation was right there, and he said, all I need is a compass. And I showed him there's a compass on his iPhone. Didn't help. But Rock's final surprise at the end of last year was not so lighthearted. He decided to continue his routine prescription and leg care therapies that could sustain him. He did this twice before, and both times led to hospital stays with internal infections. To our surprise and delight, he recovered both times, but December and January led to a different outcome. He would not recover, and Rock had made a choice to let go of life on earth and trust God to receive him, and he did. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's important to express our heartfelt thanks to Casey. As we all digested this last surprise, Casey, your professional knowledge, intuitive wisdom, cool head, and warm heart helped guide our collective decisions during Rock's final days. And your visit by his side in ICU over a snowy Atlanta weekend, while he was still able to communicate with you, was the best gift you could have ever offered. I also want to thank Jennifer, Greg, and Barb for always being available and vested in Rock's health and welfare. Their listening ears, objectivity, advice, and reassurances have been invaluable, and their hands-on help for making today a reality. Greg and Barb's last visit ensured Rock's final days included some of his favorite tunes next to his ear. As we close this gathering, we want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Your efforts and collective commitment to share time together strengthens all of us and reassures us that we all have a whole lot more life to live. For that, we can all be very thankful and joyful. Before leaving, we hope if you haven't already, you'll take a piece of Rock with you from the front table. And Rock was really clear. He wanted this gathering to be a happy event, a joyful celebration of a full life well lived that intersected with each one of us. And we're going to conclude by taking a minute playing one of Rock's favorite tunes to kick off the party. And it's also one that he and Casey would dance to. So hang on. Let's party.